Hello, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to do an update on my training. I've not done one for a while. I've been a bit distracted by the Tour Divide. But yeah, done with the daily updates now, and I thought I'd catch you up on what's been going on with the training. And the main thing, well, at the moment I'm training for the Transcontinental race, which as I record is only a couple of weeks ago. And you may recall the last one I did was just before the Hellenic Mountain race, so I guess the best place is to start there. And I never actually got around to doing a video rounding up my Hellenic Mountain race, so I thought I'd start there, show you what I did, just show you kind of what the numbers look like in one of these big ultra races, and then I'll run through how I'm training for TCR. But you know, there's not too much of a gap between it, so it's more like maintenance rather than training. And yeah, before I go any further, obviously these training videos, as you probably know, sponsored by Talk Fitness, and yeah, I've been using their products for most of this year. I actually took a load of these flapjacks at the start of the Hellenic Mountain race. They're basically flapjacks on steroids, so there's 35 to 40 grams of carbs in each one, depending on obviously flavors. I think some are probably a bit more potent than others. But I started Hellenic with these, and I use them quite a lot in training, and they're quite good because they've got a lot of energy in them, but they're not quite as, they don't feel like sports food. They're more like a real flapjack, which is pretty good. So I started Hellenic with tons of those, and also a load of the new 1-to-1 Proto products. See, these are their kind of higher carb energy drinks and gels. So I actually took a load of gels with me. I think I probably started with about 12 or so, and then I took a load of these 40-gram sachets, and I was able to use these later in the race, and that seemed to work fairly well. And yeah, I was able to keep fueled in the race. So I put the discount on code on the screen for the Talk stuff, and yeah, go check them out because it's good stuff. Right, so what happened at the Hellenic Mountain race? Well, when I last recorded this, I was about to fly the next day, so I was well into a taper, and I had this master plan to ride out to the start, which sounded good on paper. You know, a couple of longish days, probably expecting 4 or 5 hours. Fairly chill, and then have a day off and race. Didn't quite work like that. The first day, as you can see from Thessaloniki, basically on the flats. I was expecting it to be pretty easy going, but there was just like a thumping headwind the whole day, so I was just like on the pedals. Ended up being almost 7.5 hours pedaling, probably a bit more than I needed to do, to be honest. And yeah, the legs were a bit dead after that. The next day, that was fine. I did the bulk of the riding on Wednesday. The plan was I had to get over one mountain pass, just one nice long steady climb, and then freewheel down to the start village where Hellenic was starting. That all went wrong when I realised that the pass I'd chosen was washed away, so I had to do a massive diversion and ended up in a 2-hour hiker bike. So that says almost 6 hours ride time, but you can probably add 2 hours of hiking on top of that as well. And yeah, wasn't ideal. Legs were pretty dead, and yeah, probably not the best start to Hellenic. However, it wasn't the end of the world. I was feeling pretty strong and pretty fit and recovering quite well. So I had a full day off, just did a load of like stretching, as you can see there. These are just the Wahoo system ones that I do. And then yeah, got going on the Hellenic Mountain race. And the race, I mean, I can't complain. I was pretty strong, pretty fit. Wasn't the fastest one there, and I think the result was fair. I was 5th. Went pretty smoothly, made one, well, I can't even fully blame myself. On the last day there was a small diversion which I missed. Basically I followed the original route, ended up hiking over a landslide. It was only at the bottom of that landslide that I saw that the route had actually been cut short, and by that point I was too late, so I just had to carry on. So I was in 5th place when I made that cock up, and I came back in 6th place, but I essentially finished 5th anyway. So I think maybe I could have had a bit of a shout at getting 4th. I was feeling quite strong on the last day. I felt like I was getting stronger as I went on, but ultimately I finished 5th, which I think was fair, to be honest. There's some really strong riders there, and you know, you can't really complain. You know, when you've done a good ride and you know you weren't fast enough to go any far to move any higher up, so I think that was fair. So this is what it kind of looks like. So it was quite a big week. Ended up being just under 45 hours riding in that week, in essentially 4 rides. So yeah, the first day 15:20, 605 TSS. That's fairly big. That's trying to back off as well. Just shows you always go hard on these races. Then like 15 hours the next day. And then day 4 and 5, this is where I really just felt like I really got into it. Longer, steadier climbs, which suit me. It was getting warm and my legs just started going. I think probably it's not a case of me getting stronger, but I think I probably fade less than other people sometimes. I guess that's just years of doing the same thing over and over and over on repeat. But yeah, that was a 19-hour day, and then another 19-hour day. This is probably all essentially one big ride, because I slept for about, I think it was 15 minutes on the last night, and then carried on. So that's probably over 25 hours riding with a short nap in essence. So yeah, fairly big days. I kind of had to estimate the power data here because the power meter packed up after the first day. I think I flooded it. The old Stages ones don't like getting super wet sometimes. So yeah, that was a big week. Another 42-hour week. So that was 42 hours. That was 45 hours pedaling, and then I had a rest, which you can imagine. And my initial plan was, so the way my season is going, I've not been 100% the whole year, so in terms of knowing exactly what I was going to do, but I decided to go to Hellenic, and then I have an entry to Silk Road, but essentially I've decided to go to the TCR just for a number of reasons, which means that it was quite a tight turnaround, or it is quite a tight turnaround. Obviously we're not at TCR yet, so I decided I was going to have 10 days basically not riding. So obviously there's a lot of travel. My flight was the next day after I finished, so that was all a bit stressful. So essentially the 28th here wasn't really recovery, because traveling, carrying bike boxes around, stressing about getting to airports on time and check-ins and how much your bike box weighs, and finding a bike box as well, all that nonsense you have to deal with, because I did a one-way trip, because I flew into Thessaloniki, flew out of Athens. So yeah, that was a bit of these days weren't exactly restful. I mean, I was phoning around. I finished about 7 a.m, and I was phoning around trying to get a bike box within an hour of that on 15 minutes sleep. So I probably sounded pretty delirious on the phone. So I got home on the 28th, and actually no, that wasn't even rest. Then we went away for a family weekend away on the 29th to the 31st. So the real rest started on the 1st of June. So I did nothing, had my physio. I've seen her for years and years just to sort of iron everything out. And then I decided what I was going to do is focus on the rock climbing that I started doing, get really sort of strong in the core. And incidentally, I felt incredibly strong on the hiker bikes and stuff, stronger than I have for years. So, climbing, I really, really recommend for that stuff. No little niggles or anything like that. Went for a little spin just to get the legs going. Felt horrendous, as you probably expect after that kind of effort. I find it takes a little while to get going. And then the plan was to start training again. I think I was going to start on this weekend. I had an extra day because I just couldn't be bothered. Took a bit of motivation to get going. And then I started this week. But essentially I did one session. So basically the plan was to start with some of the stuff I'd done previously, and basically compact all the last sort of 6 months training into a 3 or 4 week block. Just touch on everything. And just try and sort of I'm not really looking to gain any fitness, essentially, but just maintain what I had. So I can see I finished here on that was 139 there. That was 139 by the end of that week. So 140 odd, dropped 20 points on the CTL, dropped a few more here, so 115. And then my aim is to kind of do quality intervals and keep around that, and then TCR, hopefully ride into it. So as you can see, I did a 2x20 sweet spot just to get going again, which was fine. I mean, it's weird, like my endurance felt incredibly strong, like top end of zone. Anything else was right at the bottom of my zone, including sweet spot. But I guess that's just the nature of doing these long events. Then I got ill randomly, just fell off for a day, so I didn't ride then. Had to take it easier. Then it was raining and I couldn't be bothered to just go and ride in the rain. So I think I just did a bit on the turbo trainer and a bit of heat. Obviously TCR is going to be pretty hot in Southern Europe. So I've made heat, strength and quality intervals kind of the key thing I'm trying to do. Went back with some more sweet spot, did 3x20, was a bit easier this time, but obviously do the extra interval and a bit of climbing. Actually, I'm progressing quite well on the climbing as well, which is quite nice. I'm really feeling quite strong. So again, it's quite nice to do something that's not necessarily cycling, because I do quite a lot of cycling. So yeah, it's good to have an aim and a goal around something else. And then basically I sort of pieced together a little block here. So first 3 days, sweet spot. Then I just did a long ride with some, or not that long, but nearly 3 hours with some tempo blocks at the end, just backloading stuff. Then one of the classic Fat Max sessions, which you've probably seen loads over if you've been watching these videos. So yeah, that was kind of my getting back into it week. 14 hours or so. You can see still pretty good, like pretty fresh. But the reality is sometimes with an ultra in your legs, the Training Peaks doesn't really understand that. So you are probably tired than you think. And then, well, what I do this time of year is the Club 10 time trials. So if you're not from Britain or you're not familiar with like the club scene, most local cycling clubs in the summer have a 10-mile time trial. And yeah, I've got the full clobber. I've got the bike. I've got the skin suit and the helmet, and quite enjoy having a hit out. It gives me like a 20-odd minute hard effort each week. And I think racing always brings more out of me than just training. So I try and do that. So I did like just a 4-hour endurance ride the day before because I didn't want to go too hard. Otherwise you suffer. And then I just do I did some sort of tempo efforts in the morning. These basically, when I upload, sometimes it goes to the wrong file. So you probably see this when I've got 3 sessions on a day. So this was actually, if you see the blocks here at the bottom where the cursor is, that's my tempo session. And this is the time trial, but it muddled up. So it doesn't line up there. So it is a couple of hours in the morning, time trial in the evening, 21:41. It's about par. My best is 21:03 on this course, which is the N110 if you know time trialing, which is apparently quite a slow course, but I've only ever done a 10 on this course, so I don't really know. Aim will be to get under 21. I got 21:03 last year, which is the best I've got. But normally when I start back, it's around that time. Then the next day I back that up with another 3x20s. Again, not amazing on the power, to be honest, but it is what it is. Just trying to build it up a little bit before TCR. And then the heat workout. Thankfully, it's been really warm, so I've done quite a lot of heat, even though it doesn't say I've done a heat workout. Quite often I'm just ending the last half hour of these rides with my rain jacket on, even though it's 30 degrees. And you soon get quite warm, and it does benefit you quite a lot. Then I had a rest day, and then you may recall the last inside test. Basically, I was getting super efficient, and the only real way to sort of drag up my form a bit was to do some VO2 max efforts. And again, I felt that I've not done a test this time. I just feel like I didn't really have time to do it, and I was pretty sure I knew where I was. Probably, so if you're a coach, you're probably rolling your eyes at that. But I decided that I'll do some VO2 efforts. I did this last year, and basically they totally smashed me. But I was absolutely flying by Silk Road, which would have been 2 or 3 weeks later than the start of TCR. So I haven't quite got the time to really build. But as I said, I'm trying to do quality, not quantity. So I did those 6x3, basically as hard as I can. I finished off with some heat, and then a fat max the next day. That worked pretty well. So that was like a 17-odd hour week on the bike. So nothing spectacular, but plenty enough. You can see though, because I'm doing a bit more intensity, you can't quite do the volume to keep up this CTL here. So I have dropped a little bit, but I'm not really too fussed about that at the moment. And then basically I just tried to build on that. So this would have been last week. It was quite a busy day on the Monday, on my feet all day, and building a fixie. There'll be a video about that at some point. So I did a bit of climbing in the evening, up to the sweet spot to 4x20. Again, just progressing that a little bit. To be honest, felt pretty dead standing up all day, brazing a frame together. Doesn't really, doesn't do much for your recovery. So I was a bit flat there. And then, the next day I did a similar, just endurance and bursts. Again, it's kind of muddled up my files here. So the club run, the club 10, I was pretty slow, to be honest, really windy, and the legs were dead. It was 22 minutes dead on the time, which is a bit annoying. I've not been that slow for a long time, to be honest. I'm normally kind of closer to 21:40. TT there. I just do endurance and bursts. So every 10 minutes, do like a 10-second, like I call it an easy sprint, just a burst, really, not even like a full gas sprint. I find it quite good just to get your legs going a bit before the time trial. Plan was to do a 4-hour ride on this Thursday just to keep the endurance in, but to be honest, I was exhausted. Probably doing 2 hard days back to back, not really recovering on my recovery day, and I just couldn't be bothered, to be honest. So I decided to rest. And also TCR, a big part of that is planning, and I was getting a little bit not too stressed, but just aware that I didn't have a full route yet, and time is ticking, and it always takes longer than you think. So essentially on this Thursday, it would have been last week, I pretty much spent most of the day just looking at Riber GPS, looking at the kind of banned road list on for TCR, looking at the manual, just trying to piece together my route. And by the end of the day, I had a kind of a fairly solid route there. So although I didn't ride, I think probably spending that 4 hours or that half a day, probably 6-7 hours working on the TCR route is going to make me faster than doing those 4 extra hours. So yeah, if you make one mistake on TCR, you could have like a DNF or you're outside the classification. And those 4 hours aren't going to make me quicker. So I think it was time well spent. Then I had my physio on the Friday, and as I didn't ride on Thursday, I just went for an easy ride. But once you see a physio, it's not really much point doing anything too hard. But I just spun my legs out just to kind of loosen off. And then I went back into these 3x6s again, and a bit of heat. Again, you can see here that it's switched the workouts from the preset ones to the actual result, which is annoying. But yeah, not really the end of the world. And then I did some more fat max, put it up to 5x30. Again, this is my big endurance ride. Essentially, it's a structured endurance ride. So yeah, feeling pretty good on those, to be honest, which is kind of what you want ahead of a TCR. So yeah, I did drop a bit of fitness because I missed that endurance ride. So down to 111. Again, I'm not over fussed about it because I don't want to just like chase numbers ahead of TCR, because I'm trying to squeeze it in quite close proximity, and I think it's a recipe for disaster if I overcook it. I want to be fresh for TCR. So that was fine, and then we're here. So yeah, 4 and a bit hours yesterday. Again, a bit tired, but yeah, today is well, you can see I'm busy. Training update, some podcasts to do, and I'll go climbing later. And then basically carry on the rest of the week. So Club 10 on a Wednesday, a bit more sweet spot on Thursday. I've got to actually get my bike for TCR. So I've got to drive down to Mason on Friday. So that's going to be a busy day. And then that's the last 2 sessions really. Maybe I might ride my TCR bike before the race. That'd be good. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And then we'll be off into a taper and TCR. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to really. Nothing spectacular. Just sort of ticking over more than anything. And yeah, I mean, I'm just hoping my legs know what to do when it comes to TCR. I've done enough long races, and yeah, I think all the work that I did in the spring, I think hopefully is going to start paying off now. Well, that's what I'm telling myself anyway. We'll find out halfway through the TCR. So yeah, that's my training update. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks to Talk for supporting it. So yeah, check out those guys. And yeah, we're back next week with, we've got podcasts the next few weeks and some pre-TCR stuff. So yeah, check out that and see you then.